Today, that is going in there. Today we are finally putting the engine in, but before we do, we actually have a bit of work to do beforehand, which is kind of expected at this point. Although it is actually ready for the engine just to go ahead and drop into the car right now, I need to take the transmission off because it'd be nice to have a transmission with the engine as well. So to start off today, what we are going to do is we're going to take off the transmission, bring it outside, go ahead and clean it up, connect it up to the engine, and then set it in there. While we're under there pulling the transmission out, we're going to go ahead and disconnect everything else that we may need, like the exhaust, the driveline, things like that, so that way we can have as smooth of a transfer and getting everything from our donor car to our new, hopefully running today, Miata. There's a lot of simple steps, but each one's gonna take a lot of time today, so without further ado, let's get under the car and start taking things off.
Christmas is coming and I have put a whole bunch of work in designing a bunch of new designs for the Christmas season. They are up and available now on the website at philosupra.com, and they will only be here for a limited time up through the new year, so make sure to grab them now because any order before December 1st will guaranteed be shipped at the beginning of the month, so that means that they will be here for Christmas time. So go ahead and give everything a look and snag yourself something warm, something cozy, and something that represents your car passion for this holiday season.
I just got bailed out big time. So I was getting ready to hook up the engine so that way I could just say, hey, we're gonna put it in now. And I was looking at the motor mounts, I was like, oh shoot, these are no good. Like, the rubber had completely come off, and I was like, crap. What do I do now? And it was the same situation on both sides, so I was like, well, here goes this. Now I have to wait a couple of weeks to go wait for some of them to ship in. Good English, nailed that sentence. But I was ticked off because it's like, dang, well, that's kind of ruined. But luckily, I have way too many Mazda Miata engines. Not even counting the one in my actual car that I drive. I have this one over here that we yoinked out, and I have another one sitting over here that came with this car as part of the deal. And by some miracle, between the two engines, I had one for each side. Now, the crazy thing about that is that this engine only had the driver's side motor mount. Passenger side motor mount didn't even exist. And on this engine, the driver's side motor mount is hosed, but the passenger side motor mount is perfect, which means I get to replace both of these motor mounts, which are both gone. By some miracle, with the three engines I have combined, I have two motor mounts and they happen to both be both sides. So it's exactly what we need. So yeah, a ginormous bullet has been dodged, and now it is time for us to get this engine in the new car. I can't believe we're even here. I feel like these projects should be taking much longer than they are, but yet it's at the point where we're putting the engine in. So without further ado, let's get this thing all mounted up. All right, we got it in. Well, it's looking pretty good. It's so weird to have this in this position already. It feels like things are going by, again, so much quicker. I think I already said this before, but it feels like it's going so much quicker than it was before. But now that it's in, we just have a bunch of putting things together to do. So we're gonna go ahead and start with putting things together underneath. We have to get all the mounts on. We gotta connect the wires underneath. We just have to make sure that everything is all good to go. And then once we finish that, we're gonna hop up on top and just start plugging in everything and putting everything all together. Really excited to see where this goes. Let's hop underneath the car and get to work.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing, standing up everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're just about ready to start the car. I've wired up pretty much everything I could think of. Obviously, put everything in the engine in. Everything's plugged in as best it could be. Cam sensors line in the back. Spark plugs are in. Intake is in. It's all plugged in. Cruise control's there doing nothing, admittedly. Turns out you need to use that pedal from that car, and I didn't find out soon enough, which means I'd have to take off the dash and the harness and everything else we already did. So looks like cruise control's not an option right now, which is okay. But then I hooked up the radiator, I hooked up the fans, and all we have left to do is the fluids. Now I've also hooked up everything underneath. Don't know how much you could tell. Driveline, exhaust, everything else, it's all on. If you haven't noticed, we're missing the headlights right now, but I'm going to do that last because it's just the easiest way, and I actually don't know if I have two fully functional ones since those were hitting the front and this one didn't come with any. So with all that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put our fluids in. Clutch is already working great, which is good. I mean, there's pressure to it. I don't actually know how well it's working, but all we need to do is we need to do oil. All we need to do is we need to do oil, we need to do coolant, we need to add a little fuel just to make sure there's some fresh stuff in there. Then we're good to go for a test. So let me give it one last look over and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I have goofed. So I was looking at this engine, I was pouring the coolant in, and I was like, geez, what's that dripping sound? Well, it turns out all this puddly stuff was coming from this area, this area right here that only had one bolt on it, so it was leaking quite badly. And I was like, gosh darn it, this guy before me didn't tighten it up. What is he doing? And then I was like, well, he was driving it before just fine. How could that happen? Like, how could it hold coolant? And then I was like, oh, it was me. So you see way back in when I was trying to get the engine out, I had to take the power steering pump off, and I was just like yeeting bolts off right and left to try to get that loose because I wasn't exactly sure which one it went to. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I took off a 12 and was wondering, why is there a 12 millimeter that I'm taking off when the rest of these have been 14 millimeters? I found out where that 12 millimeter that I took off was from. Yeah, it's from right there. So anyway, this sets us back at least tonight, unfortunately, which is actually kind of fine because the nerves are getting to me and I want to sleep on it. So the reason why this sets us back at night is because there's no specific gasket for right here, or at least not one that I have a replacement for. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to use gasket maker in order to reseal this once I can get this all cleaned up and dried off. So what that means is that is going to need to set overnight to make sure it's completely hard. Now again, I actually don't mind this too much because one, it lets me sleep on it. Two, I also am having gasket maker sealing on the exhaust because the cat was a little bent, so I had to straighten it out. So I put some on there and I'd like that to harden up just as well so I don't have any exhaust leaks. And then three, I still have to do the gearbox oil as well, which is gonna take a bit of time, and I actually am not sure if I have enough gearbox oil. And since the light is starting to wane outside, it's getting to that point where I'd like to be able to start it up during the day when there's more sun out. So anyway, all that being said, I'm gonna get this sealed up and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day. I said I was gonna do this when it's light out, but I forgot I had a meeting at around noon, and then turns out daylight savings makes it go dark at 4 o'clock. So it's like 4:30 right now, but everything's dark and we're gonna go ahead and try to give this a start up. Coolant is good, doesn't leak. There's oil in it, there's gearbox oil in it. I just need to connect the battery in the back, hope and pray that this doesn't explode. I'll crack the door and then here goes nothing, I guess. Oh man, I'm nervous, but there was never gonna be a point where I didn't have to turn the key, so let's go ahead and give it a go. So here's kind of where I'm thinking that things may be going wrong. It doesn't seem like the starter's getting a signal. Now it's down there somewhere, so I'm gonna have to take a look, but I thought everything got plugged in. But here's the nice thing. I got another Miata right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and just fact check and see if I can figure out what is going on, because I'm a little bamboozled, to say the least. All right, after a while, it took a long time. We're trying to figure out what's going on with this engine. I think I actually have narrowed down an issue that is what's going on. So here's where we're at. So I spent a lot of time going through all sorts of wiring diagrams and everything. I made sure everything was plugged into the starter. I checked other parts of the car. I even went through the wiring so specifically to so much extent that I actually found wires on that car that I've been driving for 2 years that I hadn't had plugged in, simply because I was so thorough in finding them here that I realized, oh shoot, I don't have that same one on there. After going through and making sure that everything in here was plugged in, I was like, all right, maybe I'm just gonna go through all the grounds. Because the good thing to know, which pause back up, just a reminder, we know this engine runs. There's the video of me trying to get it off the trailer so we know it turns on. So that gives me the confidence that I'm not having to chase down a bad starter, bad wiring, to the extent of having a pre-existing issue. I know that whatever the issue is, it's my fault. I went ahead and then took every grounding point, like right here. I pulled them all off. I took a wire wheel brush. I wired them all down. I got them completely clean, grounded out, still nothing. So then I grabbed a battery charger and I went ahead and put the battery on a charger because I realized, all right, it might be dead. I know it was working when we pulled it off here, but there's a good chance in the few weeks to a month that I was sitting that, hey, maybe it died. So I put it on the charger, I let it charge for a full day and a half. No difference. I started messing around with all the wires. I even found some wires on the dash that I hadn't plugged in correctly, and I couldn't find anything. And then I think I got it. So as I was going through everything on the actual car that we're working on, I was checking things like the ignition switch, making sure everything was plugged in. And then I was looking for a tiny plug that was gonna go to the back of the dash because I wasn't getting the lights to light up. And I found the plug, and then I realized, wait a second, this isn't plugged in. Why is that a big deal? Because this is the clutch. And if the clutch isn't pushed in, the starter will not start. And there's no wire there, so it's not getting the signal that the clutch is pushed in. So therefore, no matter how good our wiring is, if it's not getting the signal that it's okay to start because the clutch is disengaged, then it's never going to start. And then once we get that on, we're going to go ahead and be able to hopefully start it. So let's do a quick cut because there's really no good way to film it, unfortunately. And let's see this car attempted to start now. Oh, come on, we're so close. Come on. It's running. Let's go. All right. So as you could probably tell, it didn't sound very good. And my initial thought was that the timing is off, but it didn't mess with the timing at all from when it was over on the other car. So I think that that is actually okay. My thought is that it's just bad gas, because when I was giving the gas pedal a few light pumps, it wasn't helping it start in the way that it normally would, whether it be on my red car or any other manual car that I drive, where it's like, especially on cold starts, you try to give it a little gas to start. It's like, all right, cool, warmed up, now we're good to go. First off, it's a cooler day outside, and since this engine hasn't run in a while, I think it just hasn't warmed up. And in addition, I actually never have checked the status of the gas tank, and so there's a good chance that the gas is old and really needs to get worked through the system. So I did pour about 1.5 gallons of new gas in. I'm hoping that I could just kind of work my way through that bad gas and get it to a point of running, because I don't think it's the timing. I think that might need to be adjusted, but I marked the cam position sensor and it is in the exact same spot that it was when I took it out of our donor car. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop back in, try to give it some more starts, see if I can get it to a spot where it's idling on its own. So, huge progress. Mission accomplished. I was not gonna end this video until the engine started. You guys don't know it, but there's been about a 4 to 6 day span in between me being like, all right, I'm first gonna try to get it cranked over and getting it actually started, because I could not figure it out. But I was like, I do not wanna end this video until this engine starts. We're at that point, but I wanna try to get it a little better for you guys now. Let's try to get this idling smoothly. Because the next episode we can try to do a little bit more. I got some big plans. Oh, another little cool thing really quickly. I know I'm talking a lot, but you guys haven't seen the update on the checkoff list. Engine refresh done, door dams done, windshield, that'll be the next thing we do. So next video, brake booster done, wiring harness done, doors halfway done, this one's not in yet. Clean the carpet, done. Taillights done, trunk done, exhaust done, seats done, dash done, coolant overflow done, flywheel and clutch done. We're making good progress. All right, let's try to get this car idling. Oh, I'm dumb. I didn't put it in the other motor mount. I'm an idiot. Oh my goodness, how am I so stupid? Okay. That's good. All right, so what just happened was we started it, I gave it a bit of gas to get it to higher res, and I slowly let off the throttle, and eventually I got to the point where I wasn't holding throttle, and as you guys can kind of tell, the timing is pretty retarded right now, so we're gonna have to try to advance that a bit in order to get that in the right position. Now, unfortunately, it's not at a spot where it can hold idle by itself. What I'm thinking I'm going to do before I start messing with the actual timing itself is to take the idle control and open it up a bit, try to give it that ability to kind of hold idle on itself. The other thing I might do is there's an idle control electronic switch that I might unplug. So that way it doesn't try to compensate for itself, because that'll actually try to lower the RPM to try to have it sit around 500 to 700. So this way, if I unplug it, I can set it high to idle at around 1,000, and that way I'm not having to deal with the issue of fighting the electronics themselves. So I'm thinking I'm going to start there by upping the idle manually to see if I can make sure I can get it to idle before I start messing with the timing in that direction. Because right now I can't idle it, which means I can't use my timing gun to see specifically where the timing's at, which is the biggest issue of them all. So let's unplug that, up the timing, see if that gets us anywhere. We're gonna go ahead and grab our timing kit, see if we can get this thing timed up correctly. All right, so the Miata's running, the timing is set at 10 degrees advance, which is where it should be. That's where it's set from factory. And now that it's holding idle just fine, I'm gonna go ahead and let it run for about 10 minutes. Now the gas gauge says that it's empty, which would make sense because this was a shell when I got it. Obviously you guys know that by now, but I wanna let it run for about 10 minutes to see if it'll kind of work itself through. It's holding a steady idle now, which is even better than just holding an idle when I have to put some gas on it. So it's not fluctuating up and down, it's holding steady, it's good. It does smell a lot like gas out of the rear exhaust right now. I have a feeling that's just working itself through any bad gas that was left and kind of just getting itself started. We're gonna let it run, we're gonna see how it runs after that, but this is pretty good. All right, I let it run for 10 minutes. It held idle just fine the entire time. There was a few small backfires. I think it's running rich still. I don't think it's a timing issue because we checked that and that is all good. We had some small smoking, but I'm pretty sure it's just burning off oils that had dripped down onto the exhaust from cleaning it up and whatnot, so I'm not concerned about that. Coolant was actually looking fine. Topped it up just a little bit, but really didn't need that much. Everything is looking okay. I just need to make sure that I can get that running rich issue figured out, but not too concerned about that. That's something I'm sure we'll be able to sort out fairly simply. But now we get to go on to the fun part. I'm really excited. This is gonna be the end of this video, but there's so much more coming that we need to do. Next video, I mentioned it briefly, we need to replace the windshield because I wanna get that done. So next video is going to be doing the windshield and going to be doing the top just so we can have those done, taken care of, out of the way, get that peace of mind of just knowing, all right, it's done. And then from there, we need to work on making it look like an actual Miata. So that's going to be sanding and doing all the other doors, trying to get front fenders. I have some in the back there. I don't know if they're going to be able to still be salvaged because they're on the accident here. We're going to give it a shot, but if not, I'll go ahead and get some new front fenders. I have a front bumper, the hood, all the good stuff in the front. The fun part of getting everything all cleaned up. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We got it. We're running. That's a huge step. I'm so excited to continue working and getting this going, so hopefully we can have it done sooner rather than later. Go ahead and check out the merch as always below. Christmas is coming. Buy yourself something. Treat yourself. You know, you deserve it. You deserve it. I deserve it. I got this going. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Adios.